You won't believe what happened at our family cabin last weekend. I was enjoying a quiet evening with my daughter when suddenly, a group of men showed up, flashing fake badges and claiming to be HOA officers. They tried to intimidate her, even going as far as threatening arrest over something trivial that didn't make any sense. My heart stopped for a second seeing my daughter scared like that was unbearable. I knew immediately this wasn't just a normal confrontation. These so-called officers had no real authority, but they didn't know who they were messing with. As I stepped outside to confront them, I realized the situation could spiral fast. The tension was thick. They clearly thought they could push us around. But I have a background most people don't even imagine. I've commanded us marshals in high-stakes operations. I knew I had to stay calm, but inside, I was preparing for every possible move to protect my daughter. The fake cops had no idea what they were walking into, and what happened next is something you'll have to see to believe. It all started a few days earlier when we bought the cabin. We were looking for a quiet escape from the city, a place where my daughter could run free and we could unwind. Everything seemed perfect until the HOA notices started piling up. Strange letters, demands that made no sense, and suddenly these officers showing up at our door. At first, I thought it was just an overzealous neighborhood group, but the way they moved, the fake badges, the scripted threats, it was clear they were trying to intimidate us. My daughter, usually fearless, was shaking. I could see the fear in her eyes, and it made my blood boil. I knew I had to assess the situation carefully. Rushing in without strategy could make things worse. I started piecing together who they might be and why they chose that moment to escalate. There was something off about the timing, and the way they spoke made me suspicious. They had been watching us. Every instinct I had from years of law enforcement was screaming that this was bigger than just a HOA dispute. I had to protect my daughter, but I also needed to uncover who these fake cops really were, why they thought they could get away with this. The night was far from over, and the real game hadn't even begun. I could feel the tension crackling in the air as the fake HOA cops lingered near the cabin, pretending to review some violation papers while keeping a close eye on my daughter. Every word they spoke felt rehearsed, like they had practiced intimidation techniques for people who wouldn't fight back. But they clearly didn't know us. I watched them carefully from the doorway, noticing every detail, the way one of them constantly checked his watch, the subtle hand gestures they exchanged, the nervous glance at the something about them screamed that they weren't just amateurs. Meanwhile, my daughter tried to act brave, but I could see her glancing toward me, looking for reassurance. Part of me wanted to step outside and confront them directly, but another part knew that staying inside, gathering information, and planning a calculated move was the only way to keep both of us safe. I began thinking about backup, about old contacts and resources I could discreetly call in if things escalated. Then I noticed something I hadn't before: a third vehicle parked farther down the road, half hidden behind the trees. It wasn't theirs, and whoever was inside seemed to be watching us just as closely as we were watching the fake cops. It was clear now this wasn't just a random intimidation attempt. There were layers to this I hadn't anticipated, and I knew the night was about to get even more dangerous. The night was growing colder, and the shadows around the cabin seemed to stretch longer with every passing minute. The fake HOA cops were edging closer, circling as if they owned the property. Their voices low but sharp, filled with false authority. My daughter clutched my hand, whispering questions I couldn't fully answer, and I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Every instinct I had as someone who had commanded us marshals was screaming that we were on the edge of something serious, something. These imposters had no idea how dangerous they were, making it for themselves. I kept my eyes on the third vehicle down the road. Whoever was inside had moved slightly, their headlights cutting across the trees, as if studying our every move. My mind raced. Was this an ally, or a hidden threat? The tension was suffocating, and every sound, the crunch of gravel under shoes, the rustle of leaves, made me jump. I began considering how to maneuver, how to protect my daughter while exposing these fakes without giving away my position too soon. Suddenly, one of the imposters stepped forward, pointing at her, raising his voice with that fake authority that made my blood boil. My heart raced, and I could see the fear in my daughter's eyes turning into defiance. The moment stretched, every second filled with uncertainty, every movement charged with danger. And then, just as I was about to make my move, a new sound pierced the night, a sound that none of us were expecting, and it changed everything in an instant. Before I could react to the unexpected sound, the third vehicle's headlights swept across the cabin, and out stepped a figure I never expected, someone who looked like they belonged with the My mind raced. Were they backup for the fake HOA cops? Or had someone else been watching the situation all along? The tension spiked instantly, and my daughter instinctively stepped closer to me, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. The new arrival didn't speak at first, just surveyed the scene with an intensity that made even the fake cops hesitate. Then, in a calm but commanding voice, he said something that sent a chill down my spine, a name I recognized from my past operations. Suddenly, it wasn't just a matter of protecting my daughter from petty intimidation. This had escalated into something far bigger. Whoever this was had their own agenda, and it wasn't clear if it aligned with ours or against us. I realized that the imposters were now caught in the crossfire of something far more dangerous than a fake HOA dispute. Every move I made from this point on could trigger a chain reaction, and the night's events were spiraling faster than I could control. My daughter gripped my arm tightly, sensing the danger even if she didn't understand it fully, and I knew that one wrong step could change everything. The tension was unbearable, and the storm of conflict was about to break, but how it would unfold was anyone's guess. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, letting my presence fill the space between us. The fake HOA cops froze, realizing for the first time they were no longer in control. My voice was steady but firm as I called out their bluff, exposing their fake badges and their lies. My daughter, standing beside me, found her courage to, holding her head high. The impostors tried to argue, but it was clear they were caught. They had underestimated not only me, but the experience I carried from commanding U.S. Marshals. Then, the figure from the third vehicle revealed his true identity: a federal investigator who had been tracking a string of fraudulent schemes linked to these He stepped forward, confirming everything I had suspected. This was not just a random act of intimidation. The stakes were far higher, and our confrontation had just intersected with a much larger investigation. Within minutes, the impostors were restrained, their plot unraveling in front of our eyes. As relief washed over me and my daughter. Thinking it was finally over, the federal investigator handed me a sealed envelope. My heart skipped. Inside was proof that the scheme went even deeper than we realized, implicating powerful people in the background who had orchestrated the intimidation. I realized then this night was far from the end. The danger hadn't vanished. It had only just begun, and the real battle was waiting beyond the cabin doors. The tension finally began to ease as the impostors were taken away, their threats exposed for the lies they were. My daughter hugged me tightly, her fear slowly giving way to relief and a sense of pride. Seeing her stand strong during the confrontation reminded me that courage often comes in the smallest forms, and that protecting family is more than just physical. It's about presence, trust, and staying calm under pressure. The federal investigator stayed long enough to brief us, confirming that the intimidation attempt was part of a larger scheme targeting property owners in the area. Thanks to our quick thinking, evidence was preserved, and the impostors' network would soon be dismantled. For the first time that night, I allowed myself a moment to breathe, reflecting on how quickly ordinary moments can turn into life-changing events. As we watched the cabin grow quiet again, I realized the night had given my daughter a lesson in resilience and the value of courage under pressure. We shared a quiet smile, knowing that while threats can come unexpectedly, preparedness, experience, and trust in one another make all the difference. Even though the larger scheme was still unfolding, we had faced the immediate danger together, and we had won, at least for now. The cabin felt safe once more, but the story would linger in our minds long after the night ended.